Hello, and welcome to the Wonder in the Weeds show, where every week we explore and share how we live, love, and grow right alongside grief, change, and the wild messiness of human life. I'm Christy Ritz-King, and I'm excited to share this week's wonder with you. So, I'm going to sit back and sip my tea and tell you a little bit about what's going on this week. As many of you know, I have moved to the Midwest from the East Coast, and I left my kids on the East Coast. Not really, not left them, but one of them is in college in West Virginia, and one of them is in college in Philadelphia. My baby, my littlest, is in college in Philadelphia. And we just spent last weekend at Parents' Weekend. We flew back, which was weird in and of itself. I could probably do a whole show just on that, how it's strange to fly back to a place that you consider home, but you're flying there and you're staying in a hotel, and it's all very strange. But that's not what today's about. Today is something that came up during Parents' Weekend. So we flew in, it's not like this is the first time I've seen or been in contact with him. We've been in touch, since we dropped him off, really. And mostly I get the calls from this one because they're all different. I don't know if you have kids that have gone to college, but or just off into the world, adult children off into the world, but they all handle it differently. And my relationship with each one of them is different, sort of based on their own personalities and their circumstances. So this one I don't hear from very often. He calls when he needs something, or he calls when things aren't going well. And so my really only updates from him phone wise or text wise were, that it was a rough transition. And I hesitate to even say that, because I think it was just a normal freshman year transition. He's left a really great group of friends and is trying to make new ones, and that's never easy on anybody. And also, we've just sort of taken home away from him. We dropped him off at college, and then we're like, okay, we'll see you in a completely new place, in a completely new home, in a completely new state when you come home for vacation. So he's got sort of a double whammy of figuring out who he is in the world. Anyway, the whole point of this story is to tell you, had another occasion to learn something about myself this weekend that I didn't think was new, but like I said, with each kid, it's always different. So we went to Parents' Weekend, we fly in, we get to see him. I am not really sure what to expect, because like I've said, I've kind of only heard from him when things aren't going well. And also I've seen he's really jumping into a lot of stuff. He's got his own radio show. He's doing another radio show. He has tried to join these clubs. He's going to, movie premieres with the film club. Like, he's really active, and also calling me to tell me how homesick and hard it is. So I kind of didn't really know what to expect when we went for this family weekend. So we fly in. First of all, we get the notice that maybe we're not even going to see him the first day because he has something to do, which is both a blessing and a curse. I was kind of excited, like, oh, great, he's got this sort of social life. I'll be honest, I was thinking, like, what are we going to do when we get there? And he doesn't really have plans or any friends or anything to do. It was this weird sort of sensation of like, how much do I do as the mom to sort of curate this experience? And how much do I let him guide us and what is right for him? Because that sort of like, how do you parent older kids? And parent being like sort of this active thing. How do you transition from somebody who used to not manage his schedule? Because I didn't do so much of that in high school either, but I definitely was much more involved in the day-to-day running of his life than I am now. And how do I transition into that new role? The weeds part of this is the changing and the discomfort that comes from growth, and the sort of existential nature of like not really knowing what my job is anymore as the mom, and also learning to make space and hold space for their emotions and their growth and their challenges without carrying that around with me all day, every day as well. Because that, for me specifically, has always been a challenge, to not hold on to their emotional, drama, but also be able to hold space for them. Similarly, in therapy, I always joke that I don't, not joke, I always say that I don't know what I would have done if I was a therapist right out of undergrad. If I was, fresh faced 22-year-old starting this business of holding space for other people's emotions, I think I would have been eaten alive because even as a school teacher, I had a hard time separating my own stuff from that of my students and their families. And so I can't imagine if I walked into the field of trauma and as a trauma therapist, as a kid myself who didn't really know how to handle it. The reason I'm able to do my job is because I have really strict boundaries and I know how to take care of myself to not allow the weight of my clients' experiences to bury me. And it's a similar thing with parenting. Like, how do you keep the weight of your children's emotional experiences from burying you while also still making space for them to help and guiding and helping them process it? So this week's weeds are a lot about that, are a lot about how do you parent older kids and how do you guide without getting swallowed up by them at the same time. So it's a little bit of both, this transition into parenting older kids. And also some of the things I find sort of weedy about parenting are that when you have multiples, you'd think like, I can just do the same thing I did. I've done this before. This shouldn't be new. I shouldn't feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I've already done it. But it's so different with each kid and with each circumstance. So certainly with this one, it is a completely new experience because we have just uprooted his home. So that's a very different thing than when I sent the first one to college in the middle of a pandemic. I sent the second one to college in the middle of a gender transition. And now I'm sending this one to college and we have completely uprooted his home life. And so every one of them has been its own challenge and also as difficult as the last. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how do I not only navigate this process, but find the wonder in it, find the ease or the delight so that it doesn't totally take me under. So let's get back to Parents Weekend. We show up. I don't quite know what to expect. He is, he's thriving as far as I can tell. He really loves the city that he's in. He really loves being able to sort of hop on a train wherever and get wherever he's going. Like in that way, it's exactly what he wanted it to be, which is awesome. That's what you want, right? You want to see that your kid has his expectations or her expectations are being met. Also, I wanted to scoop him up and make everything okay because it wasn't all perfect. He didn't have like a group of friends that we hung around. He had just told me he'd been out the night before doing something with people and he's making friends, but he didn't, as secure and grounded as he felt in the place, in the city, it didn't feel like he was totally secure and grounded in the community of the school yet. And of course, right? It's only October. I shouldn't expect that he would be. And my mama heart wanted to be like, just come home with me. I'll take everything. I'll take all the hard stuff away from you and I'll make it all better. And you can just come home with me and it'll all be fine. So that's the weeds of it, is trying to sort of not feel like you want to fix everything and also recognizing this is hard. It's hard for everybody. It's hard for him. It's hard for us. It's hard, we all want to be near each other and we want everything to be easy for our kids, or at least we want everything to be comfortable for our kids. And life isn't comfortable. And especially if you're going to grow it all, it can't be comfortable. So I have to recognize that like some things aren't going to stink for him for a while and he's got to navigate that and figure it out himself. And I do still play a role, but really now it's more of the guide post. And so I have to learn to ask him questions and sort of let him lead certain things. But also, I know him well enough to inject every once in a while and say, hey, would you like it if I did this? Would you like it if I made this piece easier? Would you like it if, case in point, he has pretty quickly, so this is my kid that's always been really great with his money, and he has pretty quickly dwindled his account and I think was maybe afraid or embarrassed to say something or, whatever. But I know that what he's got in his account is not going to last him the rest of the semester. And so I said, would you like me to ask you about your money? Because I could tell he was a little stressed out about it, but I also know him well enough to know he's probably not going to ask. So I said to him, like, would it be easier for you if I just said, hey, I'm gonna do this for you because I can see that you need it. And he's embarrassed a little bit and whatever. He's probably gonna hate that I'm even talking about this, but it's a combination of knowing him well enough to know what he might need, but also being able to hold back a little bit. Like I didn't just put money in his account, because putting money in his account would be sort of the easy way out, right? Like he's got to face it. He's got to have a conversation with me. I have to know he's going to be more responsible going forward. I'm not rescuing him in that, like, I'm not rescuing him, meaning I'm not just like coming quietly and Venmoing him some money and helping him figure it out, or, showing up with something I think he might need. Like, I want him to learn to not only take accountability, but also to ask for help, to understand the power of being able to ask for help. And what I really want to do is just rescue him and send him some money and let him do whatever he wants with his money, and buy things and go to movies with people and go to baseball games if he wants. And, all the things that I think are going to make him happy. I'm like, yeah, do that, spend all your money. But that would make me feel better because I'd think he was happy. But ultimately, that's not serving either one of us. First of all, I'm not made of money, so I can't just keep injecting his account with money. But really, most importantly, what is that teaching him? What am I helping him do? How am I guiding him if I just continue to rescue and rescue and rescue? At the same time, I'm not going to leave him high and dry, but I want him to take some accountability. I want him to say, hey, I messed this up and I've learned. And so I need a little help out of this, but I'm going to do it better next time. So he knows I'm not sort of an endless faucet of cash, but also I'm not going to leave him out in the cold, and I'm not going to shame him for making mistakes. Certainly, I, of all people, cannot shame somebody for making financial mistakes because practically my 20s and 30s were built on that. It's this dance of examining what makes me feel better versus what's the right thing to do. And because I'm not just making all the choices that make me feel better, that requires a little bit of insight too into how do I feel okay with this, because it's so hard and it's so complicated, and it doesn't serve either one of us for me to just make the comfortable decisions all the time. So this weekend, one of the things I noticed was he's just, and I didn't notice it for the first time, but it was almost a reminder of how different he is from the other two, in that, first of all, he and I have spent a lot more time practicing emotional management. He was the little one that had sensory integration issues and was really, ultimately was only diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, in spite of all of us thinking maybe there was some, ADHD, or maybe there were some spectrum like behaviors. Like, we've sort of from early days thought there was more to it than just generalized anxiety. But really what I've learned as a parent and a mental health practitioner through this kid is that, like, generalized anxiety, if you are born with it, can present in a myriad of ways. So all the things we thought were something else have really just been about generalized anxiety. And so we've spent a lot of time practicing management of that anxiety, to the point where I look back and wish that I had just done the same thing for the other two. Like, it's just really good sort of like tools for living that he necessitated explicit instruction in, because it was really hard for him to exist in the world otherwise. Everything from when you're very little, like loud noises and, hand dryers in the bathroom, and then birthday parties and changes in the schedule of school, like routines would throw him off. All of those alarms and drills that they practiced when they were little. I mean, they kept practicing them as they were older, but we had to learn how to have him not be completely dysregulated when all of that happened. And he has required a lot more of my intentional teaching. The other two, I don't want to say that I didn't teach them anything, but I think that I just sort of, I took for granted a lot of times that they were just sort of rolled with things and could handle transitions and could handle, lots of things, crowds and changes and all of that. And this guy just required a lot more guidance in some of those areas. So fast forward 18 years, and he's probably the most including myself, the most well-adjusted, emotionally managed human being I've ever met. Super introspective, really understands what he needs, why he's reacting the way he's reacting. Like he's really an impressive individual. I find myself then having to remind myself of that he is fully capable. I don't have to keep clearing the way anymore. I don't have to keep anticipating the speed bumps, because if he encounters one, he knows what to do. He knows how to get himself over it. He understands how to get around or get through or regroup after, getting caught by it. He has those skills. And so when he is upset, I have to be careful of my own stuff, because I get really triggered into that past version of both of us. So when he is sad or when he is struggling a little with regular everyday things that we struggle with, I have to be like, do not jump in here and assume the worst, like assume he's going to completely melt down, because he doesn't do that anymore. He hasn't done that in a very long time, because we learned how to get around that. Or so assume he's going to completely melt down, or B, assume I have to fix it. I have to jump in. I'm the only one who knows. Because for a really long time, that was true. And I hate even admitting that out loud, because I work with parents all the time and say, like, you don't know, you're not the only one who understands this kid. But in some cases, you are the one who understands them best. And that's what I'm talking about. Like I would be able to walk into a room and assess the situation immediately for what he was going to stumble upon. And I'm talking about when he was really little, and it's been a continuous sort of process of unlearning that as he has evolved and changed and grown. And so same thing in college. I had to do it in high school. I'm going to have to do it in college. That sort of like reminder that he's going to be okay. He's going to figure this out. And even if it's hard or scary or he's sad, it's not the beginning of the end like it was when he was small. He's not going to come apart like he did when he was small. And that, I think, is really the sort of weediness of it, if you will, is like remembering who they are now versus judging them or behaving with them or guiding them or treating them like they're reacting as if they were 4 or 5 or 6 years old. I think as parents especially, we tend to lock in our thoughts or our opinions or our judgments of our kids, possibly at the most traumatic times. I don't know that that's true, but it feels like the thing that affects us most, the time period, the behaviors, the all of that affects us most, I think we tend to lock in that image of ourselves and our kids at that time. So for us, those early days of dysregulation and crisis, when everything seemed to, be nails on a chalkboard for this kid. Social interactions were, he was up here from an anxiety standpoint. School, grades, work, all of it. Like it just was, every day was high alert situation when he was small. And when I give both of us grace and can look back on it, I realize, that wasn't always. And that wasn't, I say like his childhood, but really it was like a couple years and a couple instances where he was not supported at all at school. And in fact was like almost like whatever the opposite of support is. He was like fighting against school in some regards. And those things are stuck in me so much that I have to remember he's not that person, and that the situation, the circumstances aren't that. And he actually wasn't that person years later. But even though I have this sort of sometimes this triggered reaction of like, oh no, here we go, when he gets sad or upset or needs my help in some way, sometimes my initial instinct is like, I'm like holding my breath and waiting for the other shoe to drop and waiting for it to get worse. I mean, if you're not watching, you didn't see, like, I literally just lifted my shoulders into my ears thinking about it, because those years were so awful for all of us. Now, as a full grown, I mean, not full grown, I don't think they're full grown at 18, but but the government does. So as a full grown adult, he is not that kid. He is really, really intelligent and really insightful and really flexible in ways that I never would have imagined when he was a little kid. And I have to watch out for that. I have to be careful that that I am assessing the person right in front of me and not the little person he used to be. And I think that's sort of the key for all parenting older people, is like, who are you judging? Who are you assessing? Who are you trying to figure out? And it requires a little bit of your own tuning in to, like, why am I reacting the way I'm reacting? What's happening here? What am I triggered by? What do I think is going on? And some grace and assessment for the person too. Am I trying to guide this person as if they are 7, or am I trying to guide them at 18 or 19 or 20, knowing who they are now and what they might think is best for them now? Getting out of the way while also being there if they, bounce one way too far, one side or the other too far. I always used to describe parenting to people as bumpers. I don't know if you've ever been to a bowling alley, but when you go to a bowling alley, they did not have these when I was little, but now that, I mean, maybe they did. We didn't do 10-pin bowling. There's a little digression. When I was a little kid, I grew up in Maryland, where we had something called duck pin bowling, which is a small ball, not candlestick, you Northeasterners, not candlestick or candle pin or whatever they're called. Thinner pins, smaller ball. We did not have gutter guards. You threw that thing in the gutter if you're going to get there. I'm assuming maybe in 10-pin bowling they had gutter guards, but I don't know. I know when my children were small, we had something called gutter guards, which used to be like just big, like, blow up inflatable pillows that went in the gutters of a bowling alley. Sometimes now they're fancy and they're like just little metal things that hold it. Either way, the point is they fill in the gutter so that no matter how sort of wacky and wild you throw the bowling ball, it's at least going to make it to the end of the lane. It might not hit anything, and it might bounce from gutter guard to gutter guard to gutter guard, but it's not going to go into the gutter so that, you have zero chance of hitting anything. I used to describe, and I still do to some degree, describe parenting younger kids like that. Like, the first transition to me is that, well, really, honestly, the first transition is when they go to school and you start to have to pull away and let go. We'll talk about that another time. But the big transition from, let's say, middle school, when you put that kid on a bus or you drop them off in front of the middle school and you don't hear anything about it until the very end of the day, and sometimes you don't even hear anything because then your kids stop talking to you, that can be really jarring for parents. And that, to me, is the first transition of, like, whoa, what is my role here? Like, no longer is the teacher communicating with me every day. No longer do I have PTA that I can go to. No longer can I I'm not saying there aren't parents who try, but for the most part, middle school is when you really put the onus on the student and not the parents anymore. So it's for a lot of parents, it's really jarring. For me, the big transitions for me came when they went to college, because I didn't see them every day. So it wasn't that I wasn't transitioning all those other times. It's just that the huge difference for me was I didn't get the download at the end of every single day like I did. I was just a really lucky person, and all 3 of my kids would sort of come home and verbally dump on me most of the time at the end of the day. So I knew what their days looked like. I knew who their teachers were. I knew what their favorite classes were. I knew what some of the drama was in the high school. And, like they just have always been sort of open books with me. And then they go to college and I'm like, oh my God, I don't talk to them. Maybe once a week if I'm lucky. And I don't know what their, day-to-day life looks like. So that, to me, has been the biggest transition. And this is sort of my gutter guard time. I'm learning, like, okay, how do I be there as this quiet, almost not noticeable thing in the gutters, to keep them from bouncing too far off track, but really not to be involved. Gutter guards don't have tentacles. They don't have fingers that can go into the alley and guide the ball. There is no guiding of the bowling ball. It's just keeping them from going too far off track one way or the other. And that's where I am right now. And I'm trying to learn how to do that for the third time, because I've already, I got one all the way through college and I have one that's a junior, and I'm still learning with that one every day too. But this one is a very different human being. And so I'm trying to learn, okay, what do his gutter guards look like? How do I need to show up for him? And so letting go without being totally disconnected. And this weekend at Parents Weekend, first of all, I was pleasantly surprised to see that he really seems to be not only grounded in the city, but really sort of starting to get some traction on campus too, with friends and activities and things like that. He just seemed generally happier than when I spoke to him a couple weeks ago. That said, he's also missing us terribly and is now, I think, given himself a little bit of the space to realize, oh, I'm not going to go home on breaks. I'm going to go to this new house in a new state. And that's weird. And so I'm also having to deal with, what if he doesn't? What if he decides that he'd rather go back to Jersey and live with his grandparents or live with an aunt and uncle or stay with friends or whatever? I have to make space for that. I'm going to talk one more time about that, the weeds of letting go of your kids. But I wanted to keep this episode on how do you navigate the transition and the changes of who they are and what your role is in their life without overstepping and without disconnecting. Because those are the weeds I find myself in right now. This like re-examining my relationship with this kid and how much I need to show up and what I need to be here for and how much I'm even allowed to say, hey, I need this from you. I need you to check in once a week. I need you to, for instance, Parents Weekend, he would come out to our hotel and he would take the train, the public transit to our hotel from campus. And he stayed a couple nights late because his sister came and surprised him. And so they wanted to watch playoff baseball. So we were up, I think one night it was like 16 innings of a game. So we were up until 2 a.m. or something watching. And I said, I'm putting you in an Uber. Like I'm not okay if you take the train home. And he's like, you're being ridiculous. It's perfectly safe. I'm fine. I do it all the time, which I also said, like, I don't want to know that. I don't want to know that. I'm here. I'm putting you in an Uber. I'll pay for it. You don't need to worry about it. That was sort of, it wasn't a compromise. I was like, I need this. I am terrified of the thought of you getting on a train by yourself, walking the 3 or 4 blocks at night by yourself in a part of the city that wasn't very populated. It wasn't dangerous, but it wasn't very populated. So I'm like just picturing him walking alone, and I wasn't thrilled with it. And so I said to him, I need this. I need for you to be in an Uber safely so that I can go to bed, because I'm not going to rest until I know you're safely back to wherever you need to be. When I'm home and you're here and I don't know, then it's fine. Do what you need to do. But while I'm here and I know where you are, I want to know where you are and I want to put you in an Uber, and that makes me feel better. And can you please text me when you get there? So I don't know. I'll be honest. I didn't think that through before. I just knew I needed it. And so I wasn't afraid to say it. And he wonderfully acquiesced and said, okay, fine, I'll take an Uber. And then the next night didn't argue with me. Once it passed 11 o'clock, he was like, fine, I'll get an Uber. He didn't even try to fight me on that one. And I'm a little bit lucky in that, he didn't fight me on it. And I don't think I'm lucky. I think that is by design. He has never, I don't think, he might correct me on this, but I don't think he's ever felt like I've made him do anything, or that I don't trust him to get himself safely home, or that I'm micromanaging his life. Because I try not to. Because when I'm not on campus, I'm not monitoring what he's doing. And I've made it plain that I don't love that he walks around at night by himself, but I'm not calling him every night and yelling at him about it either. So because I support him in that way, because I accept and trust his adult decisions most of the time, I feel okay saying, hey, when I'm here, I need you in an Uber because it makes me feel better. Like I'm fully transparent about it. It has nothing to do with me not trusting him. It has nothing to do with me not even thinking the city's safe. I think the city's perfectly safe. I mean, I think he's safe in the city. He knows what he needs to do. So when I say, hey, this is probably totally unreasonable, but this is what I need right now, he's fine doing it. He doesn't take it any other way than, oh, my mom gets nervous when I'm here, when she's here. And so I'm going to do this thing for her. So it's not that I'm lucky, and it's not that he's just so agreeable. It's that we have that kind of relationship. He knows I trust him. He knows I think he can handle himself. And he also knows that sometimes I just need to know he's safe. And I want to go to bed, and I'll be able to go to bed if I know he's safely back in his dorm. That's 18 years of the way that we parent and the relationship we have. And me showing him I trust that he knows himself well enough to know what is right for him. Not always coming in over top of him and telling him I know better than he does. I almost never do that. There are times where I do, but I almost never say I know you better than you know yourself, because I don't believe that I do. The wonder. Let's get to the wonder. I've talked a lot about the weeds and how hard it is raising adult children, but the wonder this weekend. So here's the beauty that comes from having that kind of relationship. If you are able to let go of your kids in a way that communicates to them that you trust them, that you believe in them, that you think they can handle things, then you end up with these beautiful relationships, and you just get to stand in awe of them. And that is like the most wonder in the weeds that ever there was. As much as I miss the little guy who used to hold my hand, and as much as I sometimes miss being needed in the way I was needed when he was small, like I had to navigate, there's a little bit of peacocking you start to do when you're like, I do know how to handle this kid. I do know how to help him through things. I do know how to get him to the next thing. That was a point of pride for me, in addition to a point of exhaustion and a point of real frustration at times. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a part of me that was like, oh, I am really necessary. From jump with this guy, he was born and slept much better if he was on you. Like I had one of those wraps, I think my kids are old enough that like we had the baby Bjorn, and then we came up with something else. And then we went and co-opted some probably South American or African, it was called a Moby wrap. I'm sure we stole it from somebody, but it was a gift to me when he was born, and he literally was in that thing all the time. Partly because he was the third baby and I needed both hands to be able to do something, but partly because that's how he slept, attached to me. So from jump with this kid, I had a little bit of like, oh, I'm so important. I'm so important in his life because he wouldn't be able to do any of these things without me. So it could have gone really wrong, because I could have just kept that through line all the way till he was a grown human of saying, I know how to handle this and you don't. But instead, what I tried to do was early days say, I think I know what's going on, and I think I know how you can handle this. So I'm going to teach you how to handle this, because someday you're not going to be able to have me behind you clearing the path. So let me talk to you about this. Let me teach you these things. Let me show you these things. Let me expose you to these things so that you can walk through the world with confidence. And look, some of that was luck. He will tell you himself, the pandemic and the sort of worst thing that he ever imagined actually happening was actually something that helped with the anxiety, because he realized like, well, boy, if this can happen, then what am I like wasting my life on? And it's not like anxiety went away. It was just almost like a light bulb for him of, oh, I'm going to be able to manage more than I thought I could manage. And so years of me guiding and teaching versus doing for him then led to this amazing relationship where I just get to be in awe of him almost every single minute of the day. We are navigating the city. I don't know where I was. He navigated the city. He led the way and got me on and off of the train and got me in and out of places and found bookstores that we needed to go to and found places to have breakfast. And he navigated the city like he had been living there his entire life. And I just got to watch him do that and be so competent and self-assured. I mean, if you had told me 10 years ago that this kid would walk through a city self-assured, I don't know. I don't know that I would have believed you. And he's just not afraid of trying stuff. Like, this is the part that has me like, I mean, if you're not watching, what you're not seeing is me like leaning toward you. Like, I want you to really hear this from me. He has a radio show that I get to listen to every single week where he talks about jazz. That is so him. Also, he's doing like a sports betting show where he gets to give his opinion on, who you should be putting your money on this week. Hopefully he's not sports betting. I don't think that's where all the money went, but he's just, he's applying to be the producer of the basketball, like live basketball show when the basketball team starts. He's applying to do color commentary, possibly. Like, again, this is a person who used to not be able to go to birthday parties because he was so overwhelmed by the social interaction. And now he's like, how about I do the color commentary for the basketball team? The growth, the transformation. And no, you know what? It's not transformation. It's because he's always had this little fighter spirit and he's always really known himself well. Again, from the get-go, he would demand that you held him close because that is what made him most comfortable. And so he's always known himself well, and he's always been really great and insightful and introspective. But now he's just sort of like, I'm not afraid. I'll try out for this thing. I'll do this thing. He's talking about studying abroad. He's talking about like all of these things that I, as an 18-year-old, was like terrified, wanted to do, but was terrified to even try. He's just like, yep, here I am. There's all these opportunities, and I'm going to grab at every single one of them. And as the mom, and I know his dad feels the same way, there's nothing better than just watching them like blossom into these amazing human beings with courage and grit, grace, and all of the things that you hope when you hold that little baby in your arms, they grow up to be. So that is the wonder of it all. The weeds are the parenting and the making decisions and the learning how to let go and the trusting them enough and trusting yourself enough to know when to push and to pull and to let go and to just be the guides. That's the weeds of parenting. Is constant second guessing of yourself and constant insight and constant growth and constant discomfort. And then you look up and it's nothing but wonder and awe. It's nothing but wonder and awe. If you've got little ones and you're in it, hang in there. If you've got older ones and you're wondering sort of what your role is, I'm here to tell you that it's really a reward at this point. Yes, are there days where I wish they were all home and on the couch with me? 100%. But man, it's fun to be friends with these adults in the world that are just cool and still want to hang out with me. That's the reward. So there's your wonder and your weeds this week. I hope you guys are finding some wonder in your weeds and being able to live and love through all of this messiness of human life. So if you were encouraged by today's conversation, I would love if you came to be a part of our Women of Wonder community. I've created a virtual space where we get to keep these types of conversations. How do we do it? How do we navigate the weeds? How do we find the wonder? We keep those conversations going with real connection, with real support, with real fellowship, and without all of the algorithm and drama and other people's control of social media. So think back to a time where social media was wonderful and community-oriented and grand, and that's what our Women of Wonder community is. It's social media before social media became the enemy. We'd love to have you with us. The link is going to be in the show notes or down below if you're watching this on YouTube. Thanks so much. If you like this, don't forget to subscribe, and we would always love a review. It helps more people get to hear how to find wonder in the weeds.